Hi, folks. Thanks for you all coming. We're going to wait about 5 minutes. Our engineer's on his way. He got delayed in the traffic. He's coming out of Charlotte.
Do you ever wear that other color I do. I do. I looked when I the next time I went there. It's good. I wanted a raincoat and mascot, but it was large. And that was after I lost a little weight. I'm sure I can get this on. Big it.
So last night I was playing with flowers. Oh, what fun, huh?
Oh, no. That's fine.
I started playing, I'm a wind blower. It's just too cold. Because I'm playing on the bayside. But my body says it's probably good.
No, mine's like a sweatshirt. This one must be some kind of jackets for me. That's what I like about you too. I
Tell me what to be paid. Tell me change money, what to be paid. How we change the money, what to be paid. How was it, how was it? No. What? You want to be paid?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You bought it.
I would let Rance do it.
Yeah.
Vicky's.
Gonna stay there. Maybe it's kind away from her. Yeah.
Yeah, that was right.
She's gonna be able to learn a lot by herself.
Did you? Did you do it different on your mom?
So I think
They put on. Yeah.
Did you have Vicky to walk with this morning?
No, Vicky Lott, right. She went down.
She said she was gonna head down and see Nikki.
Stop at some friend's house on 27. Yeah.
I guess she's.
Okay, folks, we'll get started. For those of you that are not aware, this is Aaron Norman. He's the principal of performance engineering out of Charlevoix and our engineering for this project. And I'm going to turn it over to him. And Aaron, if you could just start from the very beginning, from when we took phase one bids to where we are today. And then we'll talk about phase two.
Okay, first of all, sorry for being late here. So we put the phase one project out to bid in 3 separate contracts. There's a contract that's includes a lot of directionally drilled low pressure sewer, which is kind of the Columbus Beach Club area mainly. And then there was a gravity sewer contract that's mainly the neighborhoods, and it's the traditional 8-inch sewer pipe and manholes. So those are the 2 collection systems. And then the wastewater treatment plant was its own contract. The bids were due back in March. The collection system bids came in basically on budget. The plant was over budget, and we only had 1 bidder on it. So we met with that bidder, and we started to kind of do a combination of value engineering and scope reduction to weed the project down to something that was fundable. We went through a few iterations with them, and we finally arrived at a project cost that was within the funding obligations that we had obtained from 2020 or whenever, 21, yeah, somewhere there. So the phase one project, we put together award recommendations, the budget, all the financial information that went back to the USDA and Eagle and the EPA, the funding agencies. And they reviewed it. They've concurred with the funding being adequate for the project. The one piece to it is that part of that, making it fit into the budget, is contingency money, which is we're required to keep some excess money in case there's unanticipated cost in the project during construction. So right now there's $266,000 that is contingency in it. And that money right now would come from money that the township has already spent on the project that they would not get reimbursed unless the project came in on or under the original budget. Or once we pull phase two in, there's enough overlap at the plant that you can use some of the contingency money for overruns at the plant. So the funding scenario through this whole thing is kind of convoluted in a good way because the township's been so successful getting grants, but it creates a little bit of a cost tracking and separation of these different items where Eagle and the USDA have some advantage in that they're not required to follow all of the EPA and the earmark requirements for Davis-Bacon prevailing wage on the labor, and then on the products, the earmarked funds require us to follow the Buy America, Build America Act standards, which have a little tighter restriction on what can be incorporated into the project than the USDA and EGLE require. They just have the American Iron and Steel. So,
Could you touch on Davis-Bacon again, because that's our biggest problem.
yeah, so as we found out with the plant, the Davis-Bacon wage requirements are they're a combination of the rate of pay to the employee for their labor category, and then some value that they consider fringe benefits. So the contractor has to either pay the employee the equivalent of that base wage plus the fringes, or give them fringe benefits that total up to that amount. So it's some administrative cost on the documentation side, and it's also certain labor categories have a higher discrepancy between what our area actually pays and what the prevailing wage standards are. So it's several pages of different categories, and it depends what tasks. So one guy could be paid two different wages during the day if he is on a piece of equipment one day and he jumps off and he's assembling pipe later on in the day. So it's an overhead built into those contracts that was part of the process we went through with the contractor for the plant, was separating those things out. It was part of how we got Project Down able to move forward. On the phase 2, the collection system work that's out to bid right now, that's all earmarked, that's all applicable to that. So that's
It's gonna raise our costs.
it'll raise the cost for the same piece, for the same type of construction will cost more in the phase 2 area. So we have actual numbers from phase 1, and then we've applied what we think is an appropriate multiplier and done the budgeting that way to arrive at the estimates. But we will find out, those bids are due on June 6th. So we'll know for sure.
And then you came up with, you wrote a letter to USDA responded. What's the next step?
Yeah, so the next step is the USDA has concurred with the funding. So what we have is we have an award recommendation to the township that says we have these 3 contracts for phase 1. We have enough money to do all of this. We recommend that you award these 3 contracts. So internally, we've kind of discussed the pros and cons of the timing of all this. But because we're going through the special assessment process, it's not crucial that the township board makes the award tonight, because you're still working through the special assessment. So they have the ability to wait and see how the phase 2 numbers land before you make the actual award for these. So you could wait and know the total price if you want to.
So our bond council recommended that we do the SAD first, see how it goes, what objections we're gonna get, what kind of public input we're gonna get, and then decide on the board recommendations.
So in early June, you'd be through that, you'd know your cost for phase 2, there'd be no more unknown pieces, and you could make your award and move forward.
So those that know about the EGLE grant and the phase 1 area, that was to be for surge tank, cost overruns, and individual hookups. We will not be able to do individual hookups because all that money is being used for cost overruns and the surge tank.
That's correct.
Any questions for our engineer? Anything else?
everything. I don't know, lady.
No, you're not. 39 and hold. Push the button. Hold it.
Assuming that things go smoothly through June, what happens if phase 2 comes in high like phase 1 did? Is there talk about moving forward with phase 1 and spending time, because it was March to May before you resolved phase 1? So it could be another 2 months, 3 months before that would get worked out. Is there any thought about separating them and then starting one with the thought that maybe we would still have time to do the collection system before winter shut down or whatever is gonna happen, and then phase 2 collection system might start beginning of next year?
Yeah, so they still are separated, okay?
Except for the plant.
Except for the plant. Yeah, the plant is one project.
We got USDA to agree to do that, to
Yeah.
save a lot of money.
So, right, and it allows you to pool all of the contingency funds into that overlap. So there's really no thought of separating them in a significant way, but they are planned to be still phased in the construction. So the phase 1 has a earlier completion date than the phase 2.
Okay.
And
But you think that the phase 2 collection system is gonna come in good, right? Because it surprised us on phase 1, right?
Yes, the collection system work in phase 1 came in on budget. So we've added a percentage that we think would apply to cover the Davis-Bacon wage increases and have that plugged in at this time. So we have what we feel is a strong budget for phase 2 right now. And then the other thing you have for phase 2 is phase 2 was fully funded on the original budget through a USDA loan. And then after those $5.5 million were allocated to the project, the township received another $3.5 million in grant funds. So you'd have to be $3.5 million over to not have enough money to do phase 2.
So the only question, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
The only question for phase 2 is, will this board and the public accept the increased costs?
Because of the
Because of Davis-Bacon mostly. However, we don't sit still around here, and we've asked EPA to move the recently congressionally legislated $1 million over to phase 2. Did you want to talk about our contingency shortage? People need to know that.
Yeah, so the contingency shortage, the way we've handled it or addressed it, it's really the issue is in phase 1 because of the duplication of funds where there's a loan for phase 2 and then the grant came in after the fact. In phase 1, they gave a grant and loan as a concurrent package, so we didn't have the same level of contingency funding in there. So by pulling in the reserves out of the equalization tank, the Eagle grant, to use the bulk of the cost overrun, we were left with about $266,000 that the township has already spent on the project that is being put forward as the contingency money out of the sewer funds, the township sewer funds. And as I said earlier, if everything works out perfectly and it's on budget or under, the township would be able to get those monies reimbursed to them, replace it into the sewer fund. You just carry on as you would have. If you end up using them, let's say you used all of them, what would happen is the township would then have to formulate their own internal plan through their rates and fees and the sewer bills and say, well, we want to replenish this $266,000 over the next 5 years or 10 years or whatever the time frame is, and that would have to be part of your sewer rates fees. So it's not that you can't recover it, it would just, you'd have to pick a time horizon to be able to do it.
We've already paid about, what,
Well, you paid the 266 in phase one.
450? About 450 so far.
Yeah, so 266 in the phase one and then another 200 in phase two. So in phase two, you should be able to get all of that back.
Well, I'll always be hopeful, but one of the things that's important, the township cannot assess itself. So the only, so let's say the RU is 18,000, and let's make it 20 so it's easier to calculate. And the township has bathrooms somewhere, and there are 5 RUs, so the township should throw in $100,000. Well, it doesn't work that way. The bond council will not allow us to assess the township. Now, the township can pay its share of O&M costs, but we cannot assess ourselves. We can contribute. So if we wanted to contribute $100,000 in this example,
Right.
We could do that. So
Right. And I think that's part of,
you were on that call, right?
yes, yeah. And part of this issue at the end is that the original budget had, I think, 6 RUs attributed to the township park and properties. So if at the 20,000, there's $120,000 that came back out. So
Basically.
Yes,
ma'am.
Okay, I'm a little confused. Does that mean the public's gonna have to pay what the township has already contributed to pay them back? Is that what you're saying?
not the township as a whole, it would be sewer customers.
Yeah, sewer customers, that's what I mean. So we're gonna be responsible to pay what they've already sent out?
Potentially the township could formulate so the township has to keep some amount of money in reserve for emergencies and repairs in the future, right?
Uh-huh.
I don't know how much you have in that account, but there's minimum levels that are required to be held. So part of your rates and fee structure always includes money that's being set aside into this account. So if that number were $1.50 out of your sewer bill, it might have to be $1.75 or something, so that you pay this back in over the 10 years or whatever, however the math works out for you guys. But yes, at the end of the day, these monies were spent from sewer funds and go back into the sewer funds.
But it wouldn't be the general public, it would just be the people that were using the sewers to help build the sewers. And it doesn't mean that money would be spent. It just means it's a contingency in case things go over. And it may not go over 266,000, might only go over 25,000, may go 25,000 less, who knows? It's just that we have to have some money in reserve for unknown situations that come up. And that's where we have to draw the money. That's the only place to draw the money from at this point. And it seems like it's a lot of money, and it is. But over 10 years, with how many people are going to be on the sewer system at that point?
750 RU.
Yeah, 750 RUs.
700 RU.
It wouldn't take much of a
Do it in 5
raise
years.
to replenish that amount of money over like a 10-year plan or whatever. So that's what we're talking about. We have pulled funding, and let's make this really, let's put it down. We have pulled money from the state, Eagle. We have pulled money from the USDA. We have pulled money from earmarks from Washington, D.C. twice. And we have gone everywhere and anywhere we can to try and get this as affordable as possible. Without that extra funding, especially from Washington, D.C., it would be unaffordable. Our goal is to try and make it as affordable as possible.
And I think we're hitting very, very close to what we projected even just a few years ago before COVID. And before the inflation hit us and everything. And that's what we've been dealing with is inflation. The other thing about the Davis-Bacon Act is that because we pulled money from the federal government, they're requiring us to do the prevailing wage. Prevailing wage is a hard hit up in northern Michigan because we're not used to spending that kind of money up here for that kind of job. But we're required to do it for the part that is using that earmark. So basically, in your mind, think of the plant, because this would only be considered for the plant, right? We're going to have to put in my imaginary line, like a ribbon, down the middle. If you work on this side, you get the wages from that was bid. If you work on that side of the line, you get prevailing wage. That's basically what we're talking about. And that is what's raised the cost of this project so much, because we have to pay downstate wages and fringe benefits that we're not used to paying up here. And that's what's kicking us in the butt. But without the money from Washington, D.C., it would be totally unaffordable. We wouldn't be here today. The cost would probably be $40,000 per REU. Nobody can pay that. We wouldn't want you to have to pay that. We're in a situation right now that the money was available and we got it. But there's always hooks. When you get money from somewhere else, there's requirements that we have to go by to get it. And so we have to weigh, is it worth it or not? But we're pretty darn close to where we projected this cost to be for the individual homeowner of what it was 5 years ago. Well, excuse my language, but we're damn close. We've worked damn hard to get it that way. And so it's going to be up to people eventually, but we're being honest where the money's coming from, what the requirements, the hooks that we have to go by in order to get that money, and what it is costing you. It might cost you, $2-3 more a month in order to get it. It won't take long to replenish that over 10 years with 700 REUs in the mix, but the cost is what the cost. I mean, you go get bread is higher, milk's higher, everything's higher, and we have to try to weigh it and try to get it down as much as possible, and that's where we're at. So I'm just trying to be honest with everybody of where we're at. So.
Having said all that, I think we have a very, very good, reasonable chance of getting this funding moved over.
Mm-hmm.
And that would leave us, even if we used all of the contingency, 600? Nate?
Yeah.
Over 600?
Over 600. Right.
And that plant now is aging.
Mm-hmm.
If you go online and look at the revenue and expenditure report, you can see that our maintenance costs on that plant are rising considerably. We had to spend a lot of money this year on pumps, a lot of money, replacement pumps, a lot of money on pump repair. And we have a screen that, screens out everything from rags to,
God knows what.
gosh knows what.
Yeah.
That no longer is operational. They're doing it twice a day by hand. That's a $200,000 replacement. We're trying to find something a little more reasonable. So our contractor's been to see the new one in Sheboygan, the new one in Petoskey. So if we are able to get that money moved over, and even if we aren't able to move it specifically over to phase 2, we can still use it for plant improvements according to the way it was submitted. And I've talked to EPA about this 3 or 4 times now. So at some point in the future, hopefully next year, regardless of whether we're over or not, that $1 million will be able to be used for a new screen. We need an additional shed that was not built the first time. But now we need it even bigger to store chemicals, to store the portable generators. We need an extra generator. We need more pumps on the shelf. So all that money that we got in the recent congressional legislation can be used for that. And that's really going to help the whole system because, like I said, it is aging and we are starting to see the problems. The average lifespan of a pump is 10 years. Well, it's 10 years.
And the reason why we needed to look at some kind of additional storage there at the plant, excuse me, whether it's an add-on to the building itself or whether it's a pole building or a garage that's near there, is because right now they're getting their chemicals in like 5-gallon containers. When we add these two sewer projects together and it increases the RUs so much, they're going to have to get the same chemicals in 50-gallon barrels. That's what it is. And so we have to have a place to put that that's safe because a lot of these are toxic chemicals. So we have to have a safe place for our workers at the plant to be able to use, to move around the barrels and be able to work and have the room to store it. So that's why we're looking at an additional to the storage to the building. And whether it's, you know, accommodating an add-on to the building itself or a storage unit near there. And that will probably be determined at the time, but we still need extra storage. So a lot of these things that you may think that are like extras and we can do without, we can't. We just can't. We've been told by the EPA and stuff, we have to have safe storage for our chemicals and a safe place for our workers to be. So that's something that needs to be taken into consideration as well.
So just in the past 10 days, EPA opened up the application process for this $1 million earmark. And I'm ready to pounce on that as soon as I get back from my 1 week sick leave, vacation, whatever. And we'll put that in, but we didn't want to put it in and then withdraw it and redo it again. We want to get this information first. And it's going to probably take me, what, a month?
Probably so.
But we're very hopeful that we can move that because the $1 million was earmarked for upgrades and repairs of the plant. And so we're very hopeful that they'll let us switch it over to the construction part of it because we are adding on, we are improving, we're doing upgrades as well when we do that.
According to EPA, they don't care whether it's, unlike USDA, they don't remember what he told us. They don't care if it's phase 1, 2, or 3. It's one project. And if it's one project, we have a very good chance.
Yeah.
You know, we just want to be upfront with them, transparent, so we don't have a problem down the road.
Exactly.
I have a question. So I have a question. Prevailing wage would not apply to homeowners that are connecting, correct?
Correct. It does not.
So don't let anybody give you that line of malarkey. Yeah. So if somebody comes up to you, well, we have to charge prevailing wage to hook your sewer up, that's not true.
Say goodbye.
The other question is, so if I have a pipe coming out, so this is my house and that's the road. And my sewer comes out here now. So you would want to just, right now it goes back to the septic and 90 degrees. Well, I would want to go this way to the road. Makes sense.
Yes.
My well's right there. Is that a problem?
You have to be 10 feet from your well,
10 feet from my well.
minimum. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's not bad. I thought it was 50.
50 is the standard isolation.
Mhm.
And so
50 normally.
50 is the standard well isolation. Yeah. And so the health department has reviewed all of our plans and all the wells that are out there and the overlapping of the well envelopes with the sewers. And so we've specified a wall thickness and type of pipe that can apply to a reduction in the well isolation down to 10 feet minimum.
Yeah, but how's that gonna affect a private?
So it's the same for your private pipe, as long as you run the Schedule 40 and you,
Okay, so I gotta tell them I want Schedule 40
yep, they'll know. And
because I only have X amount.
yes, you try to maximize it, obviously, but if you can't get to 50, you cross it. And
Aaron, do the private contractors that kind of hooked up the house to, the system, do they talk with you and figure out the standards, so they're in communication with you to figure out everything that's going on and stuff like that?
yes, the individual connections do get inspected.
Yeah, but do they communicate with you on,
Yes.
like where you propose that the hookups would be and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, so
Okay.
it will get inspected, so it'll get looked at, but
By who?
by us, well, on behalf of the township, right? But the key is, we did these informational things early on, trying to coordinate where we're setting sewer leads. And as we're in construction, people will be talking to us more and more, is what typically happens. So the people that have not talked to us, we'll try to catch them as we're working on their road and make sure that, if we can see where their tank is, we have a pretty sound idea, and we've already planned their Y in a location that we think makes sense.
A lot of these pipes would have to run under existing utilities that are already underground from the pole, like cable, gas, electric. Is that hard to go under those? Or would it be easier just to put it in another part of the house? Come out of another part of the house? I mean, how hard is it to go through these?
So,
You don't want to take a 240 volt line.
yeah, so
Oh, that's where Mystic.
the bulk of that challenge is taken care of in the township project. Because all the gas mains and the telephone and fiber and all that stuff's in the right of way. We're gonna run the pipe under all that stuff and get to the property line. So the homeowner concern of all this would be where their individual gas service might,
Gas,
Right.
electric, yeah.
yes.
So if it runs underground, how hard is it? Are you better off just putting a pipe somewhere else away from that? Even though it makes you closer?
It's usually not that
It's not that
difficult to
big
do, because you're talking a small diameter pipe at that time, and the gas and the cable and these things run pretty shallow.
Okay.
And
So
that's where Miss Dig comes involved, right?
exactly, Mystic,
Yeah.
you definitely want.
They're not always accurate.
They're not always accurate, especially on a property, but you'll see where your meter is, your gas meter, and you know where it is at the main. And they'll usually hook right on it and trace it for you. The gas should be accurate. Phone, some of that stuff, maybe a little less, but
Do a little survey while I'm here. Who's in phase one? 1, 2, 3. What's your name?
Jeff.
Wyden.
Wow. Phase one.
McDowell,
Yeah, where at?
Arthur Street.
Oh, okay.
You want to know. Yeah.
I'm here for my son. He's next door to her.
Oh, okay. Near Vicky.
And yes,
So I got your paperwork in here. I just gotta find it. So, if you'd like some more information and you have access to the internet, you can go to the webpage, and at the very top of the webpage, there are 4 buttons. One says minutes, the other one says jobs. The top one now says sewer info. Click on that. All these documents that are going to be discussed at the board meeting are on there. It's got, a little map. It has the letter from USDA with the costs. I did a little pro forma of what it would cost you if it passes tonight. The individual cost would be $18,372.20. If that eventually passes the board for phase one, you would divide that by 40 years, or you could pay it up front. The interest rate for phase one is only 2.75%, but it doesn't amortize like a car loan or a home loan. You divide this 18,000 whatever by 40 years, and then you add the interest onto it. So, for example, I don't have it with me right now, but for example, the first year might be $1,000. The second year may be $950, and then the last year may only be $452. So it's called the declining balance method. So it's not like a car payment where it's the same every month over 40 years. So you take 40 years divided by the 18,000 and some dollars, that's your principal. And then you pay 2.75% on the remaining balance the rest of the time. Yes, sir.
Is there, do you have to take it out for 40 years? I don't think I'm gonna be around for that long.
I'm not either. I don't think I'd want to be.
One thing about that 40-year loan is that if you sell your property, it stays with the property.
I know, but I mean, can you take a 10-year loan out? Or-
Well, the USDA offers you a 40-year loan. You don't have to do the USDA loan if you don't want to. You can go to Awaken or pay it in full or whatever you want to do, but you're going to get a higher interest rate if you go somewhere else to get a loan than you will with the USDA.
And you can
pay it off
anytime.
anytime you want.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to, but you're only paying 2.75%. Try to get a loan for that anywhere else, and so it's up to you how you want to do it. You can pay it off in 5 years if you want to. It doesn't matter. You're going to get the lower interest rate from the USDA than you will anywhere else, though. But that's completely up to you.
And how many folks are in phase two? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am. It's also possible, but we're not sure yet, that some of that $1 million could be used at the plant for phase two items, because right now our calculations, because of prevailing wage for phase two, is far higher than 18,000, right? They're about 20.
Yes, just shy of 20.
Yeah, just shy of 20. So we want to try and keep these just as even as we can. And we're only going to have,
Did you say 20 as opposed to 18?
yes,
Yes.
Yeah,
I was-
that's not exorbitant. It's just the way that the money has come out for phase two, because they are two separate projects and the funding is separate.
and mostly because of the prevailing wage
And prevailing wages on phase two.
and Buy America too. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But over 40 years, it's not that big of a deal, if you think about it, but.
Yeah, I think I calculated instead of paying, whatever that 18,000 change was, it would be 29,000 over 40 years. So come right in. Hi, guys. We're having a meeting. Have a seat. I'll be right with you. Hi there. So, in any event, any other questions that we can answer? Yes, ma'am.
So the 18, what you said phase one is gonna cost,
Uh-huh.
that's it. There's not gonna be any hidden agendas that you're gonna come down the line and say, oh, we made a mistake. We have to add this to it, we have to add this to it. Or is this?
Can I guarantee that? No,
No,
I can't guarantee.
so this is an estimate of what you're gonna pay.
That's a pretty close estimate is what
Right.
that's where we're at right now. Yes.
That's what we're asking for the assessment.
Yeah, once it's on the assessment, it
Okay, so
can't,
once it's on the assessment, you can't change it, right?
well, it would take a whole separate act to change it. It would be new hearings.
Let me give you a perfect example. It happened on Navinoy. On Navinoy Trail, we said it was going to cost
Right.
X, and we went out with the assessment. And then we got word from the road commission that it was. Then we had to go through, because it was over the 10% of the original assessment, we had to go back and recalculate everything, send out new notices, and have another public hearing, which will be tonight. And that still is not approved yet, that Navajo project.
But these are all actual bid prices known. There's no,
Where,
Unknown
where
for phase
before
one.
it was unknown.
All right, I'm just making sure.
Now, in phase two, we will not estimate, we will wait for the bids.
Right. Well, you waited for phase one bids.
Right, and we will wait for
Same process.
Right.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Kind of an off
No, it's fine.
the word question. How long of a project is this going to be as far as time wise? Like, if you started in July or
Okay.
whatever year.
Let's start this way. If all the stars were aligned and the northern lights didn't interfere with GPS, what could we expect? When,
I won't hold you to it, but
yeah, I mean,
just an idea.
the plan is that construction will start here late summer, early fall. Okay. The key is that the plant comes online before a lot of the collection system stuff's ready to come on. And then what we've done is, so we've set completion dates accordingly. So the completion date for the plant is like May 25. The completion date for the collection system in phase one is August 25. And then the completion for phase two is the following spring, like May 26. So it's set to be staggered. They might be all working on different things at the same time
will it
concurrently.
take that long, really?
It won't necessarily take that long, but part of my opinion, how we got good pricing in the collection system work is giving these contractors a pretty wide window to say, I can obligate myself to this and still handle these other things that come up, so that we got a lot of interest in that.
So to answer your question, here's another thing for you. Let's say that July 2025, everything's ready to go and you can flush your toilet if you were hooked up. We have to run an ad, I think twice. We have to give public notice on our website, out here, and in the newspaper to say the sewer system is operational. You then have 1 year to hook up.
Oh.
Now,
It's not gonna be like this mad rush.
no,
Everybody.
well,
Right.
Some
It would
people
be
probably
good.
will.
It would be good.
some people will,
It would be good.
but you will have to pay your assessment. You do not pay, correct me if I'm wrong,
You're
you
correct.
do not have to pay your O&M, your quarterly sewer costs until you hook up.
Yeah, that is.
And they're not going to dig up everything all at the same time. So,
I
you know,
just wondered
you
as
being
far
over
as-
by Arthur Street, right? Yeah, maybe later than Columbus Beach because
Well,
they're gonna work through. or
You're gonna
vice
have your
versa.
hands full over there because of the trees and
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
age.
But they're
and-
not gonna dig up the whole section at one time. They're going to do it block by
Well, I
block,
was
road by
just.
road.
Spending my summers up there when I was a kid, I can tell you, there are more pipes down there that we
Yeah.
don't know about.
There's all sorts of little surprises, I think, under all of our yards.
Yes.
But, yeah, no, I was thinking more, I was trying to figure, say if it's a 9-month, basically a 9-month to a year project of getting all these in, how many man hours are being total?
Well, we got some veterans here. Sue Fisher's here and Sally's here, and they went through this the last time. Do you have anything you want to add that people might want to plan for or be surprised about?
I do have a question. Will the drawings have the mark where the top will propose to be?
Yes, we've shown where people we've talked to, we put it where they want it, and people that we have not talked to. We've tried to find where we think their septic tank is and lined it up for them.
Yes, ma'am.
So phase one will probably not be started until next summer, 2025.
No, they're,
No, we'll start.
yeah, the phase one contractor, he calls me
Every day.
frequently. Yeah, he wants to go. He's ready to go.
Yeah, they're gonna get ready this summer to start on phase one.
Pardon?
This summer for phase one.
Sally,
will
you got
start.
anything? But, what? I'm sorry?
Enjoy the ride.
Yes, it's an
Um,
e-ticket ride, isn't
um,
it?
Well, I'm just glad I get to see shovels in the ground. That was my only intent to start with, so I couldn't be more happy. And I want to thank everybody that did a lot of work. Even the previous board did a lot of work. And Chirp in the community. Where's Vicky? Vicky not here today? Oh, my goodness. Is she all right?
Yes, her daughter has a job in.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So thank everybody, especially Chirp, and he's been great. I don't know whether you know it or not, but in order to help us with contingency, he got several $100,000 out of his fee. Plus, he's been financing this. He's been self-financing his bills. We owe him a lot of money. The good news is if and when we close on this USDA loan, it's going to replenish our general fund to the tune of about $450,000. And hopefully we'll see that used on our various projects in the community and our infrastructure. So for me, it's an exciting time. But I will tell you, I've been through this on military bases, far bigger than Tuscarora Township. And when they start digging, there's going to be a lot of mad people. And, if you got a problem, come see us, come talk to us. We'll work through it. I know it'll be upsetting to you. And the customer is always right. The customer always has a 200 IQ. And people like me only have an IQ of 10, but please treat
We'll
us
figure
like,
it out.
yeah, treat us like little kids and we'll get through it.
We'll figure it out.
Right.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be exasperating at the same time. But you gotta look at the big picture that if this goes through, with the board has not voted on it yet, but if this goes through, it's going to be a step in the right direction for the community, I think. So many of the fields in these two districts are starting to fail. And we're trying to get it to the point that we don't have to close down our town, because that's, where we would be going if we didn't have this project right. And we're on the cusp, we're on the cusp of actually making this happen. And like I said, at approximately the price that we were aiming for 5 years ago, that's astronomical. That's a huge feat.
Nobody else has that.
No, nobody has that.
Yeah. Do you have any closing thoughts? Because we gotta,
No.
but you're gonna stay around.
I will.
So again, I just wanted to leave you with it. Look, this is not gonna be easy. It's gonna be upsetting for a lot of people. Mistakes are gonna be made. A tap might be put in the wrong place. I think you told that story, right? Where the taps were planned one place and should have been somewhere else. This guy's on the ground. He's local, relatively local. So unlike the last vendor. Yeah, he's only a phone call away. Get your ass up here. Yeah, but in any event, just be patient, and we'll see how things go. We still have the entire special assessment process to go through, and I'll touch on that real quick. If the board decides to pass the resolution tonight, they will set a public hearing for June the 4th to approve the bids. And then we will start the process depending on the objections we have at the public hearing on June the 4th. The board may or may not decide to proceed on that very day. And then if they do decide to do that, we can close on the loan, correct? within 30 days.
Yeah, there's some administrative things.
Right, like the 35-day wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just depends. So that means that early July, you might be, just don't put any shovels in the ground on the 4th of July because we're going to have a lot of traffic. Hope you come to the fireworks, folks. It's going to be the largest fireworks show we've ever had. And if you liked it last year, it's twice as big this year. Instead of 18 minutes, it's going to be 30 minutes. It's going to be really something.
A lot of community, and we're getting off the subject here, but a lot of community donations have come in, and people are very excited about contributing to the fireworks. And so we're going to have a good show this year. So
If you have kids or grandkids, or if you like to dance, we're going to have a DJ down at the beach, and we're going to have family dancing like we did last year. That was a big success with the kids, big party. So, all right, folks. So we're going to have a meeting at 7. Thanks for coming. If you have any questions for the engineer, he can step over here and talk to you till 7 o'clock. Thank you for coming.
I got to do them this year because last year I told them I'm so grateful massive
I think I already looked at
it.